There's something sacred about the dark. Not the darkness that comes with fear or danger, but the kind that softly folds around you at the end of a long day, the kind that hushes the world and pulls you inward. In a world that is always rushing, always glowing, always demanding that you do more, be more, and show more, the darkness stands still. It does not push or pull. It waits. It simply is. And perhaps that is what makes it so powerful. I want you to imagine now that you are sitting in a quiet space. The lights are low, or maybe there are none at all. There is no screen in front of you, no voice asking something from you, no timeline to follow or reply to craft. There is only this moment. And in this moment, the darkness is not an enemy, but a teacher. It doesn't demand that you fix anything. It invites you to feel everything. Can you sit here, just for a while, without needing to fill the space with light or sound? Can you let it teach you what it means to be still? Because within this silence, within this absence of distraction, something begins to shift. The world outside fades, and in its place, you may begin to hear something quieter, deeper. The soft rhythm of your own breath. The pulse of your heart. The subtle flickers of thought and feeling you push away when things are too loud. In the darkness, there is no room to perform. There is only room to be. And for many of us, that can be terrifying. But if you stay just a little longer, you might notice that the silence beneath the noise is not empty. It is full of presence, of depth, of knowing. It's a space where truth rises without a spotlight, where your mind no longer scrambles to keep up. Here, you are not the roles you play or the tasks you complete. You are simply you. And maybe, just maybe, that is more than enough. Darkness has always been the beginning of something sacred. Long before light graced the edges of our awareness, darkness held everything, not as absence, but as origin. We began there, all of us. In the womb, wrapped in warmth and shadow. Before a seed becomes a tree, it is buried in dark soil, unseen, unknown, and yet, deeply alive. And so, when life becomes quiet, when we find ourselves enveloped by stillness, by the things we cannot immediately understand, it's not an ending, it's a threshold. But most of us fear the dark. We fill it with noise, with screens, with activity. We've been conditioned to think that darkness means danger or failure or regression. But maybe, darkness is only dangerous to the parts of us that are pretending. The masks we wear, the personas we maintain, they don't survive well in the dark. Because there, without distraction, we come face to face with ourselves. Our true selves. Our uncertainties. Our buried desires. Our forgotten grief. And that confrontation can feel like loss, but it is actually the beginning of remembrance. Let the darkness speak to you. Not through words, but through the ache in your chest, the softness in your breath, the way your body relaxes when there's nothing left to perform. In darkness, you don't need to shine, you only need to be. Let go of needing to explain yourself, even to yourself. Listen not with your ears, but with your presence. Let the quiet stretch. Let the discomfort bloom. What feels like emptiness is often just unfamiliar space, space you've never dared to inhabit before. And slowly, as you sit with it, something happens. A shift. A small light flickers, not the kind that blinds, but the kind that warms. You begin to see that darkness isn't a void. It's a mirror. And what it reflects isn't failure or weakness, but the parts of you that are tender, honest, and finally unafraid to be seen. So let the darkness teach you, not to escape, but to stay, with yourself, with your truths, with your quiet becoming. When you stay long enough in the darkness, you begin to notice its rhythms. It's not silent, not really. There are subtle pulses, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Your own breath becomes part of that rhythm. Slow, steady, intimate. And within that cadence, things start to surface, not as sudden revelations, but as gentle waves rising from the deep. The things you've pushed aside. The voices you've ignored. They return, not to punish you, but to be held. Darkness is honest. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't distract. It simply reveals what is unpolished, unedited. It teaches patience, because in the dark, nothing can be rushed. Seeds don't burst from the soil the moment they're planted. Dreams don't manifest overnight. Healing doesn't arrive on demand. The dark reminds you that becoming is not a sprint, it's a quiet unfolding. And in that slowness, you begin to sense something else, a presence. Yours. The self that isn't performing, fixing, achieving, the self that simply is. There is profound power in allowing that version of you to exist without urgency. No expectations. No pressure to prove. Just breath. Just being. And strangely, that's when transformation begins. Not through striving, but through surrender. Not by chasing the light, but by sitting gently in your own shadow. You start to see that what you called lost was just an invitation to stop running. What you labeled stuck was a call to stillness. What you feared as dark was only depth, the depth you were meant to explore all along. So stay. Let the dark hold you. Let it unravel what needs to be unlearned. Let it teach you how to listen again, and more than that, how to trust what you hear. In the dark, something shifts, not in the world around you, but within. It's subtle at first, a loosening. The tight grip you've had on control, on expectations, on the stories you've told yourself, it softens. The masks you wear begin to feel heavy. The need to explain, to justify, to always be okay, it falls quiet. And then, slowly, you begin to feel the weight of your own truth. Not the one polished for others, but the raw, wordless truth that lives in your chest. The kind you only recognize when everything else goes silent. Darkness doesn't demand an answer. It doesn't ask you to fix or to figure things out. It simply asks you to be still long enough to feel what's real. That ache you've been carrying. The confusion you've buried under distractions. The longing you've denied out of fear it might never be fulfilled. It all rises, not to overwhelm you, but to be acknowledged, gently. And as you sit with it, you realize, none of it is shameful. None of it makes you broken. It just makes you human. This is the secret the light rarely tells you. That there's nothing wrong with not knowing. There's nothing wrong with grieving. There's nothing wrong with feeling lost. In fact, those are often the doorways. The moments when you fall out of alignment with the noise of the world and slip into alignment with something deeper. Something truer. Something yours. When you stop resisting the dark, you stop resisting yourself. You begin to make peace with your imperfections. You stop performing and start participating in your own life, in your own healing. And through that quiet acceptance, you reconnect with something you forgot you ever lost, trust. Not blind trust in outcomes or fate, but trust in your capacity to keep walking, even when the road is unclear. Trust in the rhythm of your own becoming. And here's what's beautiful, the darkness does not demand you stay there forever. It's not a trap, it's a teacher. A place of rest before rebirth. A womb, not a grave. It prepares you for light not by pushing you toward it, but by helping you remember that the light was never outside of you in the first place. That even in the deepest night, something inside still glows, a steady ember waiting to be noticed, nurtured, and one day, ignited again. So now, as you return from this journey inward, take a moment. Not to rush toward clarity, but to breathe. To notice the space you've made inside yourself. The silence that no longer feels empty, but sacred. You've walked through the dark not to escape it, but to understand that it's part of you. And in that understanding, you've made peace with something most people run from their whole lives. The world will pull at you again. It will tempt you with noise, with answers, with distractions dressed as urgency. But you now carry something they can't offer, stillness. You know how to return here, to the hush beneath your thoughts, to the truth that doesn't need words, to to the place where darkness isn't a threat, but a sanctuary. Let that be your anchor when storms rise. Let it remind you that light isn't something you chase, it's something you become. When you allow the darkness to teach you, you stop fearing your shadows. You stop resisting your softness. You begin to walk through the world not as someone who's always certain, but as someone who's deeply present, unshaken, open, and whole. So close your eyes, if you haven't already. Feel your breath, gentle, steady. Let these last few seconds be a quiet reminder, you are not lost. You are not broken. You are simply becoming. And the darkness was never the end.